good evening, internet, or good whatever time you watch this. So it's pretty much bedtime for me. But I was paging through this. I'm like, it's a damn good book. So this is gonna be not really an audio book because I'm gonna be bad at it. But I'm gonna read my book to everybody, and it's gonna be a picture book. So I'll be like a teacher in a class when you show the book and there's a picture. So, alright, class. Today we're going to read Uriel daCosta Didn't Kill Himself, a free-think examination of morals and common sense by Wendy Correa. Now, I already previewed some of this, but I'm going to read the full thing. In my quest to find healing, explore my father's Uriel, different spellings, daCosta lineage, in an attempt to find lost half-siblings that would be older than my mother, I came upon the incredible yet tragic story of Uriel daCosta while researching the Sephardic heritage and the daCosta family. I immediately felt a connection to this ancestor, if not as a spirit guide, as I had walked a similar path of challenging the establishment and all that comes with it years before I knew about him, let alone the history of the lineage. And I can say with certainty, it is highly improbable that Uriel took his own life. Rather, his life was taken from him, from the power structure of his time. Ironically enough, a shocking event for my own community that prompted me to challenge the ideals of religion as it pertains to government abuse of power, and a reflection of tyranny that likely happened to Uriel in the 1600s is still happening in the modern day. It's still happening in the modern day, but with more powerful tools of oppression. For example, in my community on April 2000, it should be in April 2000, I've got to make some edits for my second edition. In 2002, 4 Green Bay police officers shot and killed an unarmed Ben Sonnenberg in a shower of 33 bullets. 11 of the bullets struck and killed Ben, and 2 hit and wounded a bystander inside of a nearby building. After the police investigated themselves, they determined that Ben had committed suicide via cop by pretending that his cell phone was a gun to officers Eric Allen, Gary Riggles, Matthew Cade, and Scott Salzman. Apparently had no choice but to carelessly ejaculate bullets into the community they were sworn to protect and serve. Despite the police records being released to the public and many bullet holes being in Ben's back indicating he was running away from maniacs with badges, along with conflicting testimony and no outside investigations, the district attorney at the time, John Zakowski, made the determination that Ben pointed the cell phone at the police and made a motion to make it appear he was going to use his phone to shoot someone. A final determination that Ben was forcing the 4 officers to shoot him and hit bystanders in the process is not only illogical, but a complete fabrication of truth to avoid accountability. And then here's the picture. Uriel daCosta, thoughtful. I mean, it was like, some of these pictures are pretty much, not all, some of these pictures are AI renditions of whatever, which is allowed. What's the name of it? It's you gotta have something, like it can be written, and then if you don't have an illustrator, although, well, I wanted to, never mind, I'm gonna keep reading. The blatant, unapologetic abuse of power is very similar to the unfair excommunication, torture, and abuse experienced by Uriel daCosta, as historically documented and subsequent false claims of suicide after a failed murder attempt of the people, including a daCosta Uriel relative. All because he dared question the oral tradition, to which, to be perfectly honest, everyone should. It would stand to reason Uriel was onto something in his publication 11 Theses when he wrote about the hypocrisy of the sucking of the male privy member by mouth and how it was trespassing of written holy Torah law. So this one has some words. When one looks at all of Uriel's writings, including documentation of his own abuse, keeping in mind freedom of speech was not likely the norm, let alone tolerated in the 1600s, I think the grander statement about systemic as well as generation abuse in general. I think the grander statement was about systemic as well as generational abuse in general. Sorry, I read that. Wings, Orioles. Wow, here you go, class. There's some pictures for you. There's more, there's all kinds of pictures in here. Like this one. It reminds me of something that happened in 2007, right? My experiences with organized religion have gifted me with a perspective and values of an open-minded theist who chooses to believe in both a mother goddess and father God, as it is below, it would have to be so above. I personally fail to see how creating any kind of trauma to do anyone, especially a child, would be considered holy of God or goddess, let alone morally acceptable in redeeming faith of salvation. I must ask why genital mutilation of babies and children was ever and still is considered acceptable human behavior to begin with. When one adds the sucking of the male privy, including sucking the blood, I cringe at the thought that the phrase "sweet baby Jesus" may have originated from the oral tradition that basically ensures memory and respectively programming of experienced trauma at the earliest stage of human life. Uriel was clever, if not tongue-in-cheek cryptic, in his title, A Specimen of Human Life. For centuries, many authors who seemingly want to protect the so-called right to sexually abuse and mutilate humanity, including children, in the name of religious freedom, have misused their authority to silence, slander, and gaslight Uriel, daCosta, and countless others over millennia. One author even claimed that Uriel took his life because of a fragile ego, overlooking decades of abuse, including from his own family, in Uriel's written account of defending and avenging himself in his autobiography. Both the defending and avenging was simply by the effort. See, it's a edition 1. It's going to be rare someday. Well, no. Both the defending and avenging was done by with simply the effort of his written words, not just for himself, but free thinkers, activists, and those brave enough to stand up to tyranny and oppression long after his passing. These were two witnesses of Uriel's failed murder attempt and subsequent abuse. There were two witnesses to Uriel's alleged failed murder attempt and subsequent alleged suicide, were the very people abusing Uriel to begin with. Historic records clearly prove this. It is my strong belief that Uriel was murdered by his own family, the authorities and police of the time, if you would. Much like in the case of Ben Sonnenberg and the modern-day authorities, it was covered up with a disgusting fabrication. This claim would be used against Uriel to further taint him as a heretic, disgracing human decency, compassion, and common sense in an effort to push a narrative of a deserving, miserable life if one does not follow God, how mere mortals command. To me, this is clearly a classic gaslighting tactic. Instead of admission, so over time perhaps some of the traditions would evolve and reinvent, the cycle of abuse was instead perpetuated, if not amplified. Uriel was brave to challenge abuse tradition, including challenging his relative, who was one of the doctors of the time. So the doctors, the Jewish doctors, would perform the circumcision, right? Colorful Uriel. And this was like my rendition. I mean, this was the AI rendition of the what's it called? Right at the VOC headquarters or whatever. Keeping in mind over time, the daCosta or alias Uriel branched off into Uriel and Uriel families. I can say the different spellings. I can say with certainty that abuse ran in the family tree, at least it did in my branch. I grew up in poverty on a poultry farm and survived a rather rough childhood. When I was 11 years old, I was sexually molested by my father, Carl Uriel Jr. My mother, who physically abused me, made me go to the police and file a report against him, and the local paper printed the story of my abuse. While they could not print my name, they could print his name. Considering I was the only daughter and the local community was aware of, everyone knew it was me. The other Coriels, who lived in Kansas City, Missouri, not only paid for my dad's attorney, but according to my mother, wrote me out of the will and stopped contact with me. The other children in the local community mocked me, and when I started to have behavior problems because of the toxic situation at home and school, I would get thrown in and out of mental institutions and forced to take dangerous medications instead of getting the love and support a child needs to thrive and recover from trauma. And then this has got a picture of the house I grew up in. The property's the same, right? It's a different house there now, but, and then this is not my story of being abused, but this is the story of me being born, right? It's my whatever, but that happened. It's in a paper somewhere, and maybe I'll get that eventually, right? But all these years later, I'm still here. I've had epic adventures, made my mark on the world, and I'm still alive to create while in isolation due to aggressive multiple sclerosis that impacts my brain, spinal cord, and brainstem. While there are times I am angry or cry and think about revenge or God bringing karma to all, I have been for bringing karma for all I have been through and still going through, depending on the state of brain disease. I always come back to center and find reasons to be grateful, even when it feels like there is none. Even though I have suffered abuse, my parents also did good things and instilled some good morals. Something like trauma, and I'm gonna have to reprint this because this is hard to read. I can't read it. Darkest of times, stop in the darkest of times, help mold me into the creative, determined person I am today. I don't know what it is, but in a nutshell, it's like just basically, well, my life shaped me into who I am. I don't know if it had to be all that way, but whatever. Anyway, my father, Carl Jr., was 30 years older than my mom. A World War II U.S. Navy veteran who filmed the testing of nukes at Bikini Atoll. I have a suspicion this might have caused or worsened his pedophilia, as the military did not properly protect the troops in the early testing of this type of warfare. And the brain matters, right? His mom, my grandma Imogene Schneider Coriel, was the first civilian employee of the Air Force. Now here's where it's weird, because her obituary says that, but if you ask Google, it says somebody different. So I would like to find out. Maybe I need to get the Pekin records and find out for certain. Get some more records for the 3rd and 4th edition or whatever I write next, right? So even though she was generally not kind to me when we would visit Kansas City, and I was told I was excommunicated from the family after I exposed my abuse, learning about her American patriot history made me see part of myself in her, the protective mother inside the spirit of every woman. I had a family of flawed patriots on the Coriel side, a mix of positive and negative energies, and learning this helped me not only forgive and heal, but understand the hardness that Grandma Jean had. I am relatively certain that Carl experienced some type of childhood abuse, as these things tend to be cyclical. I can also say that healing is possible and families can break the cycle over generations. While I cannot prove it, I have strong faith that my father and other past son Coriels are assisting me in spirit to not only heal wounds from the pain I have endured, but also heal others and do my best to clear the name of Uriel daCosta. I choose to believe we are all earning our angel wings by healing wounds together in spirit. And there's the picture of this where I can't read the text because it's whatever. I'll get closer so you see what it is, right? It's course, healing oneself is only part of the overall solution, as surely honesty and love from all would truly break cycles of abuse. These horrible things really happen to me, as they happen to Uriel, as horrible things happen to Ben Sonnenberg, as they happen to many far too often. The thing obvious about it to me is that sometimes an official story is the biggest heap of smelly pit manure one could fathom, just so serpents can stay in control. In order for that to change, people must become truth tellers, but society would need compassion and mercy for true growth. The Sonnenberg story was but one highly publicized event in an ocean of terrible hidden truths, from the shooting of Jonathan Tubby at Sally Port to the police involvement in the Tom Monfiles murder. Even the bystander that was also shot the night Sonnenberg committed suicide, in quotes, right, by police misconduct, told the press that he can't believe anyone would want to die like that, probably because no one would. With that in mind, take the accounting of Uriel daCosta's passing. Because of his lack of faith in man-made political documents, also known as religion, he was said to be cursed and depressed. His systemic abusers failed to mention religious humiliation and banning of his books, excommunication and shunning instead of painting him and shunning him and painting him as mentally ill. Okay, you gotta make some edits. After a horrible public humiliation, severe whiplashing, and trampling from adults and children alike, the subsequent isolation he clearly did not give up as he began to write his autobiography. This is when his relatives allegedly showed up, and according to their account, Uriel grabbed one gun because he felt offended and tried to shoot the relative, had a misfire, so he grabbed the second gun and took his own life. That makes about as much sense as someone trying to get the police to take their own life by holding a cellular telephone. Even given the tone of the autobiography, despite the torment he had just experienced, cynical yet peaceful, I would imagine that one of the witnesses took his life or were threatened to keep silent about who did. For me, personally, and likely for anyone who would fight the power so bravely like Uriel daCosta did, it makes little sense that when his relatives came to see him, he would attempt to take lives, including his own, because he felt offended. Considering these were two men and two witnesses that made this claim, and the witnesses were part of the power structure, it would stand to reason there were no weapons in the presence of Uriel until the witnesses showed up. And then there's a picture. Did I miss another picture? I think I forgot to show the last picture. I forget it. I'm not being very good reading a book to the classroom, right? Hold on a minute. Uriel was clearly passionate for truth, for the deeper meaning of existence. In some ways, his story has similarities to the plight of Jesus the Christ, who is said to have been crucified for standing up to the same tyrannical religious ideology with unconventional ideas. Uriel's life not only speaks volumes to the uncomfortable truth of power within his words, but to humanity being its own worst enemy by destroying its own innovators, prophets, and messengers with the vision to keep change, with the vision to help change our collective world for the better. I suspect that if Uriel daCosta were alive today, he would be fascinated with how the Torah, as well as other written faiths, could be tied with quantum or DNA code. It could be said that if you think of DNA and other functions as programs, the essence of ancestors would be part of our root code, our parent or even Abrahamic-based code. It is most certainly possible that the written law, or even laws of Moses, were written into our collective existence. As an outsider looking in, I can see the political control aspect of Torah, Bible, and even ancient Egypt, as well as part of the code of life written within. Hebrew in some ways almost looks like marks of data or part of a chromosome. And while that might seem far out, whether one believes in an almighty God, Elohim, Allah, Goddess Segment, ISIS, or the big quantum computer simulation lord, we all have to admit that the universe and even our own bodies and minds are far more complex and inconceivable than most humans would like to admit. Uriel knew that the game of life, as it was and still is, rigged against the masses, much like the story of Jesus the Christ, MLK, and other rebellious but brave intellectual heroes of our time. But he and others who stood up for the greater good also believed it could be better, and they helped others believe things could be better, and over time, with sacrifice and perseverance, things would improve. Uriel would not have bothered to write his thoughts and put up with even a fraction of the shit he was put through if he didn't think he could help change the world for the better, to help make it a place with less abuse, more devotion to the goddess, or to the goodness of whatever one calls the creator or creators, to help humanity be free to enjoy the pursuit of happiness. This is only accomplished if we are authentic about our own shortcomings, calling out injustices, and questioning authority, lest we fall to control, tyranny, darkness, and evil. This is especially urgent for those with the same flame as Uriel, as we move into an era of quantum computing, digital currencies, neurotech, artificial intelligence, and advanced robotics. Much like some aspects of organized faith, these things can have beneficial and positive outcomes. But we cannot forget the plight of those who have been historically abused by authority, and realize the unprecedented horrors that modern technology could usher in if misused. Uriel's, I guess, that's very profound. For example, one of the police officers who shot Ben Sonnenberg was in the news for now overseeing the high-definition traffic cameras during a time when police departments are getting a lot more military-type equipment. It should also be noted that the same types of cameras were misused by authorities to track and trap people in other nations. In the modern day, Uriel would have probably at least Googled bunkers and visited Patriot Defend and Avenge Guns.com, but likely would have decided to instead rely on one thing mightier than the sword, the pen, but in digital format. So I was just basically saying, I bet you if Uriel was alive today, he'd probably have a ton of books on Amazon. Uriel daCosta was ahead of his time, a compassionate soul that risked it all, not only for his own self-love and self-worth, but for the sake of everyone. Whether people realized it or not, he believed in humanity. He believed he could help heal the tradition. If he didn't believe in positive change, he would have not wasted time penning a logical breakdown of ritual abuse and how it made him feel. He had the courage to question the oral tradition and other horrors in his thesis to fight against powerful people doing abusive things. If you ask me, he's a great unsung hero akin to things like MLK and JFK, and it is my hope that he gets the historic accolades he deserves. Of course, just about anything written about Uriel that was not from Uriel's own hand is educated speculation. But given what I have been through, if I could speak to him today, I would probably just hug him and tell him that he is loved, he is important, and he is enough, and thank him for being a diamond in the rough. Perhaps that would be enough to help start to heal not only the bloodline, but everyone on the planet who has experienced or even created and caused abuse. It is my hope that anyone who reads this will be part of a ripple effect of healing the pain on this planet and transforming it into something beautiful. And that's the end of my book. And look at this. It's not only made in the USA, it's not Pekin, Illinois. And it's not quite money, but it's kind of money. Money, Illinois. Anyway, that was Uriel daCosta. Didn't kill himself. A free think examination of morals and common sense. First edition with flawed, kind of pixely cover, and some minor errors in the copy, and like one part that's really hard to read. So there will be a second edition that will be worked on. I have to get in touch with Amazon because last time I tried to look into my account, like I've sold some of these, not a ton, but made some sales, and I can't even get into my account. So I don't know. I think because I had the old number tied to it, so probably at some point I'm gonna have to like call Amazon, call people. I don't know how it's gonna work, but anyway. So it's not even a half-hour read. If anybody does it, a copy, or if I send anybody a copy. Yeah, it's a short book, but I think for a short book, and who the fuck I mean, I'm sorry, but I got all these great books, like big books even. And like I had Stephen Hawking comment. I ended up giving it to Mike, because I'm like, I mean, it's here, so I might read it a little bit here and there, but I can't. It's hard for me to sit down and read. Like that's the longest bunch sitting down in one sitting reading anything that I've done in a while. I think the last time I read for any length of time was when I first got my Torah Kabbalah. Cadillac Jim has it now. I think I loaned it to him. Or maybe I gave it to him, but then you can learn some stuff. But anyway, I don't. A lot of people don't have the focus to read, let alone write. So, long books in this day and age are overrated. It's not the size. It's what you do with it. Anyway. Hope somebody enjoyed that, and I'm going to get ready for bed now. Thanks for watching. Peace, love, light, kittens. Later days. Beautiful, blessed days. And good night, everybody. And try to stay cool tomorrow. Oh, hydrate. Like 97 degrees for the high, I think. Stay hydrated tomorrow. Wisconsin. And wherever it's. Well, just stay hydrated regardless. Stay hydrated. Okay. Bedtime. Good night.